All right, folks, we will go ahead and get started. Please have a seat if you haven't already.
You're fine, Alan, you're fine.
Folks, welcome to the Washoe Commission District 1 candidates. My name is John Crockett, and I'm an Incline Village resident, as well as branch manager of the Incline Village Library. This event is presented by the Incline Village Crystal Bay Community Forum in collaboration with the Incline Village Crystal Bay Community and Business Association. The goal of this discussion is to learn about our candidates and ask them questions from our in-person audience. We are also live streaming on our YouTube channel. We got an ECD Community Forum YouTube channel, and it will be recorded for later viewing. The format for tonight's forum is that we will ask each candidate to make a 5-minute opening statement. We flipped a coin earlier, and candidate Berkbigler will go first. And after each opening statement, we will turn to questions from the audience. We asked our audience here, and we'll give you a view of everyone here to the folks online. We're in the Incline Village High School Muffield Auditorium. And audience members may write their questions for the candidates on a sheet of paper. We're collecting those questions. And my colleague Rhonda Tysart here is grouping similar questions together, and then we will ask the candidates. We will give each candidate 3 minutes to respond. We'll alternate who responds first, and we plan to take a break at about the 1 hour. We may not get to every question tonight, so if your question was not answered, please visit each candidate's website to submit that question or find out more information. So we will go ahead and get started. Just a reminder for our audience, this is going to be a civil discussion. Please refrain from comments, applause, and things along those lines, and we'll just hear from our candidates tonight. Thank you. So let's start with Marsha Berkbigler. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate, can you hear me? Everybody can hear me? Usually I'm such a loud mouth that normally people can hear me anyway. I want to start off with. One, I want to say that I am highly allergic to pine and also to lots of other little critter things that run around they grow around in our neighborhood. And when they catch on fire, I lose my voice. And unfortunately, they caught on fire this week out in Verdi, and that smoke popped right over my house for about 2.5 days. And so I would just tell you that if I lose my voice, that's why. That's why we have lots of water to keep me from losing my voice. My name is Marsha Berkbigler, and I am running for Washoe County Commission District 1. As many of you know, I was a previous commissioner. And one other thing I would tell you, I never talk off notes. I don't know how to do that. I always talk off the cuff. This time I brought notes along because I know there's a lot of issues that are really hot and heavy to everybody. So I wanted to make sure I brought some notes along that I could cover in my first opening statement. So just let me tell you that Incline Village and Crystal Bay, as well as the Valley, have a number of issues that need tackling. A number of problems, a number of things that we need to address. And I'm not going to bore you with a laundry list of those things because you guys are going to ask questions that you've been writing down. And our lovely Rhonda is so effectively going through them and bring them out. So I know that those questions will be answered in there. So let me just tell you this. Why am I running? Why did I decide to get back into this crazy political game that we are involved in? There's a lot of reasons for that, not the least of which is I'm not very smart. I grew up in politics, so I don't know what else I would do with my life if I wasn't doing politics. But aside from that, I want you to know, here's my take. I believe that government should handle our hand-on hard-earned money for services for the constituents, period, and nothing else. I believe that those services benefit the constituents in a lot of different ways. And some of us may disagree with what are services. Some of us may disagree on the point of what are services, but regardless, those tax dollars belong to you. They don't belong to the government. And when you pay them in the form of taxes and fees, that's your money. And you should be able to have a say in how it's spent. I don't think politicians should blow our money, our taxpayer dollars, on their pet projects. I'm totally opposed to that. I think that's period the end. That doesn't even need to be discussed, in my opinion, because you shouldn't be doing that. I think commissioners need to be supportive and respectable. Respectable. We'd like to be respectable, wouldn't we? Respective of everybody's issues, not just the issues for people who agree with their positions. In other words, across the board, if you're a commissioner across the board, you need to look at the broad-based issues and you need to follow those broad-based issues. And I would just say that some of the current commissioners, no, they're not meeting those standards. Some of the current commissioners are not meeting those standards. And I think that we need to look at that as citizens in Washoe County about why they aren't meeting those things. So let me tell you what you need to know about me. I'm honest. I'm straightforward. I don't have any hidden agendas. I have no games that I play with anybody. I'm totally legit. I have integrity. I am completely honest. And I am totally transparent. So if you want to know what's going on in my world, you're going to know what's going on in my world. I think transparency is such a key, important issue to all of us. I get stuff done. As a matter of fact, some of you who live here in Incline Village will remember that there was a little problem with your taxes, and your property taxes were overcharged. And there was a long time that Todd, and nice to see Todd in the audience tonight, that Todd worked very hard with members of I'm almost done, members of this community trying to get it resolved. And I'll tell you what I did. I went to bat, I worked with Todd, and I worked with Mike Clark, and we got it resolved, and you got your money back. You not only got what you paid him, but you also got back the interest that you deserve to be getting back. So let me just close by saying, why am I running? Because I think that government should be about the people, for the people, and with the people at all times. I don't think there's an exception to that. I want to bring back the concerns and cares that I dealt with when I was commissioner before. I want to bring that back to the forefront, and I want to see Incline Village get the things that it wants. One of the things, I'm going to quickly just tell the story, and then I will shut up and let Alexis take over. But just one of the things that happened when I was commissioner is I got a lot of questions from seniors who live in Incline Village, and surprisingly, there are a lot of seniors in Incline Village. And I got a lot of questions from them about a senior center, a community center. So we went to that, we set it up. We set that up at the old library. And then I left in 2021, and the senior center went by the wayside. And so it never existed. And the excuse for that was COVID, which I think is a fair excuse, but COVID's over with. And don't the seniors in Incline Village deserve the same services that are provided to every other senior in every other portion of Washoe County? My answer is yes, it's time to reestablish that senior center and bring it back as a community center and a senior center to the benefit of the people. I want to tell you how much I appreciate you all being here tonight and how much I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Alexis Hill, please go ahead.
Thank you. I am so thrilled for having my.
I'm standing for the
No.
Okay. I am so thrilled to be with you tonight, and I want to thank the Incline Village Forum and the IVCBA for hosting this and making sure that community members can learn who the candidates are and why we are running for office. And I'm Alexis Hill, and I have been working in public service my entire career. I have been committed to this community. I grew up in the city of Sparks, and I used to walk to school. And on my walk to school, we did not have proper sidewalks. This really irked me and bothered me as a community member, even though I was quite young. And I went to the city of Sparks and I asked for a sidewalk. I learned later, and the city council was nice to me, but obviously they weren't ready to do that investment quite yet. But I learned later that is actually a requirement that we should be doing on developers. We should be requiring developers to put in sidewalks if they're going to benefit from establishing communities in our jurisdictions. And when I learned that, I grew a strong passion for serving our community and seeing how can we make our lives better. And so that is a value that I hold as your county commissioner. I think about the decisions today and how they're going to affect us tomorrow, because as a politician, as an elected official, it's a sacred duty, and it's a duty that also means that you have to make difficult choices. You have to make difficult decisions for the community. And I take that very seriously. I went away for college, but came back to the community and worked at the city of Sparks as a planner and worked on those sidewalks. If you go up Vista Boulevard, you'll see that there is now sidewalks on both of those streets. And I moved to Incline Village in Crystal Bay. I worked at the Lake Tahoe Shakespeare Festival after that. And I ran a nonprofit called Kids and Horses that was established in this community by the Waldman family and supported special needs children with equine therapy. I was missing government. I was finishing up my master's degree in public administration at UNR. I wanted to get back and serve the community, and a position came open at the city of Reno, and I was so thrilled to be hired at the city of Reno. And I worked on community building activities. I worked on arts and culture. I worked on special events. I worked on economic development. And I feel like I have been part of the renaissance that you have seen at the city of Reno. And all the while I was working in local government, I was watching decisions being made on the county commission level that I disagreed with. In 2012, there was an opportunity for the county commission to enact a tax to rehab our schools, including this school, Incline High School, all schools in Washoe County, because all of our schools at that time were falling apart. And the county commission decided, no, they voted against that initiative. It was called AB 46. And 4 years later, the voters brought that to the community in the form of WC1, and we're about to invest $1 billion in our schools, in our community. And in 2012, if you'll remember, that was the depth of the recession, when we had the largest unemployment in the entire nation. And just think what an influx of money could have done for construction workers and all the ancillary benefits in our community to invest in our students. And that bothered me. And that brought me back to being a kid and feeling so helpless because I didn't have a sidewalk walking to school. And I thought, wait, county commissioners are humans. I can run for county commission. And that's where my journey to run for county commission started. And serving you as county commissioner the last 3.5 years has been the joy of my life. I love this community. I lived in this community. I know the difficulties that this community faces, and I am willing to invest in this community. I have worked so hard for public transportation in this community. I have worked so hard to see how we can get workforce housing solutions online. I've worked on lake clarity issues. I'm a strong sustainability and conservation advocate. And I am continuing to see how I can support you with fire prevention and see how I can ensure that we are connected as a community, ensure that there is public safety on our roads, that our sheriff's office feels supported. And so I feel like I'm just getting started with the work that I've been able to do for the county commission. And I can't wait to continue the journey with all of you. I pride myself on being transparent, on listening to community members, and on making tough decisions, because I think that's our job, being in this position. And thank you so much for letting me serve you, and I hope that you'll continue to allow me to serve you as we move forward, and can't wait for the dialogue tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so we will pause on accepting questions for now, and you'll have another chance to submit questions after the intermission or during the intermission. First question for you, Alexis. Both of you have represented Incline. Alexis, you are a current commissioner. Marsha, you served as District 1 commissioner from 2013 to 2021. And you both have a good idea of what the issues are here in Incline Village. what issues do you believe the county can and should do more to address? And what are the issues that you know to be beyond the scope of the county? Or do you have any role in those cases?
I think that the county, since I've been elected, has done so much more to address the issues of Incline Village and Crystal Bay. And I'm very proud of the projects that we have done to invest in a Washoe Tahoe transportation plan that we're actively looking for funding. So on the question of what we can't do, I'll be kind of addressing that as I go through each piece. But we are looking for grant funding to see how we can connect your trails, see how we can build a trail from Crystal Bay to Incline Village, because that is where some of the major public safety issues are happening on that highway. And we've invested in your Main Street program to see how we can create community and reinvestment on Highway 28. We are working very hard on fire prevention work. As I highlighted in my last piece, we are investing in a evacuation study that we're working on getting funding for. And I'm really proud of the work that we've been able to do for the microtransit in this community. Before I began, there was zero way for you to get around town unless you called a Lyft or an Uber, and that took forever. Now you have 5 vans in town. They go around, they pick you up, you call them, or you use the app, and it's free to this community. Washoe County has been investing in that. We are committed to seeing how we can support all of Washoe County. We are ensuring how we can see, how we can support more of your plowing services using AI, so you can better reach your plows, see where they're at, and supporting the community where you really need the support. So seeing how we can use resources at Washoe County to invest in Incline Village and Crystal Bay. And so I look forward to hearing about more of the concerns or questions that folks have. But, I think that Washoe County has done more in this 4 years to invest in Washoe County than we have ever seen. And I have heard that from many community members who are very excited about our investments. I will add workforce housing solutions as well. And we can dive into that a bit more. And van pool. We had 0 van pool coming up to this community. That's folks who live in Reno, coming up to work in Incline Village. We now have 21 vans who come up to this community and serve this community with workers. So we're trying to meet you where you're at and see how we can provide those solutions.
Thank you. Should please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, I disagree totally with Ms. Hill, which is my right to do and her right to disagree with me. But I will tell you that since she took over as commissioner, what we've found is we made some changes were made to the area plan, the Tahoe area plan that we worked so hard as a community to put together. The changes that were made end up making changes to the main drag, where now instead of businesses and the potential for workforce housing, you will see, and they're already starting to be built, very large condos. Actually, they're not large. They're very small condos, but they're very large priced condos. And that was done for the purposes of development. And development is a great idea. I'm a firm believer, if you're not growing, you're dying. So, of course, we need to be developing, but we need to be developing smartly. And affordable housing in this community is a difficult thing to do because the price of land is so expensive. And so that becomes very, very difficult. But certainly changing the area plan so that the area plan now allows on the main drag for people with a lot of money to come in and buy up whatever offices or whatever are on that main drag area, and it's called Area 1, by the way, does not benefit this community. It actually hurts this community in the long run. The other thing is I have a problem with is when I left, and I was on TD when I was commissioner last time, when I left the commission, what I did was I said, I don't support the transportation or the mobility hub or whatever you want to call it in the center of town. And the reason I don't is because that's not a good location for it. And there's too much traffic there already. And what are we gonna do about putting a parking lot there? We're gonna put a parking lot there, so we're gonna bring in more tourists. There's too much traffic in this community right now. If we put mobility type things on there, like e-bikes or e-scooters or whatever else, which has been discussed at TTD and several of the meetings that I've sat in on, if we put those there, what are we gonna do about widening the sidewalks? Because we have people who are seniors, a lot of seniors who are getting run over or knocked down or whatever, because they're on the sidewalks and kids come in on these little e-scooters and they take the sidewalk. That's one of the things that absolutely needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed by the county, not by the community. It's something that the county should take the lead on, and it should take the lead on it immediately to make sure that from a safety perspective, we have plenty of sheriff deputies up here. We have parking meter maids or whatever the heck you want to call them. We don't have those up here. We have lots of sheriff deputies and they do a great job, but we don't have enough. And especially in the summertime, I'm very concerned about fire. Very concerned about fire and how you're going to get out. The current plan only addresses how citizens, residents are going to get out. It doesn't say anything about the people who come and visit. And this population approximately doubles in the summertime. So fire escape is the very key issue.
We have a couple questions in the Washoe County sphere here, so another one for you. Marsha, please take this one first. Washoe County Commissioners recently approved $1 billion budget, which is 1.16 for 24-25. What are your views on the county's current level of public debt?
It's awful. My current view is it's awful. It's way too high. At one point, where I think it's actually 1.4 billion, but whatever it is, $1 billion budget. I did some research around the country on other counties of the same size as Washoe County who had $1 billion budgets, and frankly, there are very, very few. A couple in California. I think there's one in Texas, but Texas, their taxation program is way different than ours in California and Texas. In the state of Nevada, to have $1 billion budget for a county that has 500,000 people in it is a lot of money. And what is that money being spent on? Is it being spent on more policemen? Higher salaries for our policemen who definitely need higher salaries? Is it being spent on a better fire district, or is it being spent on transportation that will come up and down Mount Rose Highway to benefit the people who live in this community as well as the people who live down in the valley and want to come up here? No, it's being spent on homeless. A large percentage of the money that's in that budget is going to the CARES campus. And although I firmly believe we have to have a CARES campus, we don't have to spend the kind of millions and millions of dollars that we're spending on. Do you know, I don't know, I can't remember the exact number for what's going to the CARES campus, but it's somewhere in the $100 million range. Do you know how much we're spending on seniors in this budget? $9 million. We're spending $14 million on dogs. And I own 3 dogs, so I'm totally happy that we're spending $14 million on dogs. But don't you think seniors are a little more important than animals? Just a little more important? Why aren't we spending more money on seniors throughout this county? And that needs to be done.
Please hold your applause till the end. We'll give both candidates a round of applause as well. Help us answer more questions. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. And I respectfully disagree with my opponent. The $1 billion budget that the county has is actually very low for the size of our county. We are a very low tax state, the state of Nevada, and it makes it very difficult for us to provide services. So I'll go to the CARES campus. We spend $14 million a year on that for to house our most needy community members. These are community members who are homegrown, have mental health care issues, have addiction issues. And it's unacceptable for them to be on the street, and I believe in that investment. It's about $63 a day to house someone at the CARES campus, where it's over 1,000 in the hospital and 5 times, I think it's even more than that, I think it's 6 or 7 times for the jail. So it is the right program. We're housing people every month. Our goal is to hit 50, 50 people a month in permanent housing. We get there some months, but it's in the 30 range. And I'm very proud of that program. And that was another reason why I ran for county commission. I saw the county decide not to deal with our most vulnerable population and pretend that it wasn't there. And so I think what is very interesting is the county, it has to be everything for everyone. So we work on your snow removal. Obviously, we provide more snow removal for Incline Village than any other part of the county. And we do that because we are meeting you where you are at as a citizen group. And so, for example, we provide different services for all different people. We have 600 people in our care, 600 children in our care for foster adoption, meaning a foster family or adoption. And the county needs to provide these services to our most vulnerable people. And that's something that I'm so proud of and I stand by because I think that that's something that we need to do. And all the while, we're continuing to pick up part of the tab for microtransit in Incline Village, supporting your Main Street program, ensuring that we can connect your trails and your roads to make them safer. And I think that all of those investments make sense because that's our job. That's our job, is to invest in community, make this community better. Government's job is to ensure that we protect our most vulnerable. And how else can you find an issue such as homelessness, where you're both saving the taxpayer money and you're doing what is truly right for our fellow man? And so I'm very proud of the work that we do at the county, and I'm going to continue to fight for more resources for this community. One of the things that I'm looking to do is we're working with the Lake Tahoe Marlet Lake Legislative Committee to see if we can get more of the room tax that's generated in this community that goes down the hill to stay up here, so we can invest more in transit and connect this community better to Reno. So thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. And we'll ask you to start with the next question. Do you believe the county will or should invest more public funds in the Incline area?
I do.
I actually had our CFO do analysis on this when I first got on the county commission. And because there was a lot of folks in Incline Village who said the property tax that we pay goes down the hill. And we pay a higher percentage of the property tax that then we subsidize the city of Reno, or not the city of Reno, but the rest of the residents in Washoe County, both the city of Reno residents and the city of Sparks residents. So I had the CFO do the numbers on that. And it turns out that no, actually we are subsidizing Incline Village larger than the property tax you bring in, but that's fine. I, again, think that that is the role of government because of all the snow service that we provide. Plus with the ARPA dollars, those American Recovery Act dollars that we received from the COVID crisis that we had in our region or in our country, we were able to invest even more in this community. When I first started when I first moved up to Incline Village in 2008, it was difficult as a professional to find a home to live in, to find an apartment to live in. And now it's nearly impossible. I know that it's a real crisis up here. And so at that time, my understanding is that a workforce housing study was done, but it was shelved. Well, when I started as a county commissioner, I made sure that the county paid for a workforce housing study to see what the issue is. And we now have a roadmap on how we will move forward. We will be doing a placement program, which will be incentivizing owners of short-term rentals to turn their rentals into long-term rentals, because that is the thing that we want to see, more long-term rentals for workers in this community. So there is so many more investments that we can make, and I will say I'm very proud of the federal investments who have come to Incline Village and Crystal Bay, because I have been part of the group to fight for that. And I would say, I heard President Sandoval yesterday at the Lake Tahoe Summit say, whatever Lake Tahoe asks for, you better give it to them. And I agree, Lake Tahoe is a gem. It's such a special place. We want to make sure that we keep lake clarity, and I'm doing everything I can to ensure that we follow that and make this a great community to live and to visit and to work in every day. So thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. Marcia.
Well, the question is, do I think the county should put more money into Incline Village? Without question. We need a senior service, we need more senior services up here, we need more food services for the shut-in people. That group of people are not getting the same kind of care that they're getting in other portions of the county. And it is actually true that about, you actually lose about not quite 10%, about 8.5%. Unless that's changed since I left, but when I was the commissioner, you were losing about 8.5% of every tax dollar you sent down to the valley. You missed getting 8.5% back, or 8.5 cents. I'm sorry, 8.5 cents back of it. So yeah, it's about the same, but it's not exactly what you call right. And should the county put more money into the county area up here? Absolutely. One of the things we need to do is we need to do some serious fire prevention work. We need to make sure that we provide the fire department all the services that are available in the lower portion of the county for fire suppression. That's one of the really key issues that I've heard from a lot of citizens up here. Transportation for people who want to go or have to go to the valley for medical care needs to be done. We need to get transportation so that people up here have the ability to get up and down and do what they need to do when they're in the valley. I'm very concerned about the constant increase in traffic up here. And so I think the county needs to add some money to that type of a review also and see what they can do to maybe widen streets. I don't know. I don't know if we can do that. I don't know. I said I don't know if we can do that. I said, but they need to look into what they can do to make sure that we are resolving part of the traffic problem. Parking is a serious issue. Parking of boats, I see them parked everywhere still. Everywhere they're in a lot of places they're not supposed to be. And that is a serious issue. So those are just some little things that need to be done, I think, here in Incline Village. And yes, I believe the county can put some more money into the county or into this area if they should. One quick thing on the $1 billion budget. Where is the money going to come from to fund that now that the ARPA funds are gone? That's an issue that everybody needs to think about because tax increases are not a good idea and cutting existing services is even a worse idea.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you. All right. So you touched on it, Marcia. A concern that a lot of residents have is balancing tourism, effective evacuation during a potential wildfire, and of course, lake integrity, clarity, taking care of Tahoe. Could you explain what role the county has in balancing business and tourism and the concerns of residents in Incline Village?
Well, as you know, the RCBA gets much of the money that comes from rents or, STRs or Hyatt, or they get a big chunk of the money. It does go down to the valley and much of it stays down there. That's not under the control of the commissioners, other than there are commissioners who sit on RSCBA. I think there's just one person who sits on RSCBA is the Reno Sparks Visitors Authority. So it's basically, we bring tourism in, we tell everybody how wonderful tourism is, how wonderful this area is, you need to come in and do tourism. And when you come in and stay in a hotel or you stay in a STR, a vacation rental, or, you stay in a motel or whatever you stay in, part of your the amount that you're paying goes to RCBA to do that advertising. When I was still on the commission, it was an issue of not getting enough advertising for the lake area. There were a lot of people who were concerned about that, and so they wanted more for the lake area. They were very ineffective. They, being the commissioners who sat on the commission at that time, on the RCBA at that time, were very ineffective in getting the overall RCBA to agree to make those changes. Obviously, it's not just elected officials who sit on the RCBA board. in there, because there's a public sector, there's a casino person there, there's a bunch of, there are four other public, private people who sit on it. So that's a factor that has to be balanced out. In answer to the question regarding fire, that is something the county can do. The county can look at and work with the fire district up here, which is fabulous. The fire department up here, you guys are very, very blessed in that you have a really good fire department up here. But the county can assist them by working with them to really work on getting people. How are we going to get people out of this valley? So, I mean, the fire that just happened that caused my throat to be as nasty as it's happened because a car driving over the hill overheated. And he pulled his car off and he set the brush on fire and he burned down a very close friend's house. Fortunately, the fire district and the fire department down in Reno was so good, the fire department and the county, so good that they really kept any other houses and buildings from burning down, and that's because they're very good. That's the kind of help that they can give and work hand in glove, and the county should be responsible for doing that. So I think that's something that's really very key. I think I answered all the questions regarding it.
Thank you. Yes. Alexis, please.
I think we all want a thriving community wherever we live. We want our small businesses to survive. We want to make sure that we have traffic that flows well, that public safety is being taken care of. And I know that there are community members who told me, Alexis, if you build it, they'll come. But they've always been coming to Lake Tahoe, and I'll tell you, they're always going to come to Lake Tahoe. Anyone who lives here is so blessed. This is truly paradise on earth. And if you have over 100-degree weather in Sacramento or in Reno or in Carson, they will come. They will come up here. And so for me as a policymaker and elected official, what I want to do is see how I can mitigate the issue, because I think tourists are important to this community to keep your small businesses open. I speak to a lot of your small business owners, and they want a functioning transit system. They want tourists to come up here because they can't survive otherwise. I remember living here in the shoulder season, and it's tough. Everyone just kind of is getting by. So I think that it's finding that balance and ensuring that we mitigate the issue of tourism. And I would say that I differ with my opponent. The county commission can do something about the money that is going down the hill for TOT or room tax money. We did do something. We just moved forward a request to see if we can redirect the funds that go down to the RSCBA to Incline Village and Crystal Bay for public transit. It's something that we really believe in doing. And the county commission approved that unanimously. It has to go to the legislature. We only have so much control. But certainly we want to see more dollars stay up here to mitigate the tourism issue. And I think that there's a misperception about that the county isn't calculating for visitors, thank you, who are coming into the region when we do our evacuation scenarios. But we are going to do, we're going to work with a consultant and tighten up those numbers to see how we can get people out and show how all of the exits leading out of town would work with different scenarios. And public transit is actually a piece of the puzzle for getting people out of a disaster. And so when the South Shore the Candor fire happened in South Shore, TTD used buses to get people out. And so public transit is a way that can play a role to get tourists out of the area. So I think we need to make sure that all of these pieces are working together. And, you are blessed to live in this community. I was blessed to live in this community for a short time. And we have to share it with everyone because Lake Tahoe is all of ours. It's the entire world's. And when I speak to elementary school kids who don't have access to Lake Tahoe, who live in Reno, live in Sparks, that breaks my heart, and I'm fighting for them too. I think that is a very important part of the job as a county commission is to look and see how we can fight for everyone.
Thank you, Alexis. A question on the role between the county managers and the commissioners. Do the commissioners work for the county manager, or is it the other way around?
Well, we have a strong manager form of government. In the East Coast, many communities have a strong mayor form of government. So the mayor, when they're elected, they're actually the executive. The county has, the county commissioners hire a county manager, and that manager manages the executive functions of the county. Now, there's 5 county commissioners, and we all have a different vision on how we see our jobs in the county, what we'd like to see happen in the county. And we have to come together sometimes 2, sometimes 3 times a month and decide how those visions align, how we can work together to get things done. And the county manager's job is to execute that vision. Our job is to say high level. I would never dare to tell staff what to do because that's the county manager's job, but you better bet I'm talking to the county manager a lot on the phone because he is the executive and I want to see his perspective on some thoughts that I have. So it's a partnership. I think that the county manager needs to protect the executive function of the county. And I think also the county commissioners need to ensure that we are staying high level and looking at the policy issues happening at Washoe County. So it's a balancing act to ensure that we respect each other's roles. But the county commission, the one person that we get to fire and that we get to hire and that we get to review the performance of every year is the county manager. So that person, Mr. Brown, he has to report to 5 of us as well as be accountable to the community and all of the 2,000 plus staff at Washoe County. And I think he does a really admirable job. And I really enjoy working with him and doing the work of this community and finding that balance between working with him and working to make sure our policy goals are met at Washoe County.
Marcia.
Yes, the county manager he does report directly to the commissioners, and the commissioners can hire and fire that position. The only other position they hire and fire, of course, would be through the fire board, which is also the county commission, and that would be the fire chief. So those are the only two positions, when you talk about positions, that the county commissioners have the opportunity to control. So here's what needs to happen, and here's what has historically happened, is the chairman work and the vice chairman always work directly with the county manager, and the county manager works directly with all members of the commission, because all members of a commission are equal. The chair does not hold a higher position. The chair's job is one thing, and that is to run the meetings and set the agenda. So the chair needs to work directly with the other commissioners also, and that's one of the things that, another subject, but one of the things that's not going on right now. But Commissioner or Manager Brown is a effective manager who has had lots of experience, but he's not listening necessarily to all the commissioners, and that could be a real serious problem for a lot of aspects of business in Washoe County. And so, Manager Brown is a close, longtime friend of mine, and I used to work for him, actually. And so I would not say anything necessarily negative about Manager Brown, but I would say that his role as working for the commissioners means he needs to work for all the commissioners, with all the commissioners, and make sure that all the commissioners' issues are being advanced at all times. And I don't believe that's happening right now.
Thank you. Sean? We have many questions about zoning and development, so I'd like to turn to that. So let's start with this one. I've noticed that TTD and TRPA are working to reduce vehicle traffic to the lake, but the county is rezoning portions of Incline Village for development, changing from single-family residences to condos. This, of course, will increase vehicular traffic to and through Incline Village. Would each candidate give your opinion of this apparent conflict? Does the left hand know what the right hand is doing? And to add on to that, we recently saw Zone 1, the commercial core of Incline Village, rezoned for a particular project. And what are your thoughts on that rezoning? Why was it done, and what do you think the effects will be? And I believe we're starting with one.
I think the effects of it are dangerous. And I don't think the rezoning should have been done for the entire corridor. I understand that the developer who had the issue felt he wasn't accurately informed by county staff, that that area was actually zoned for affordable housing, and he wasn't building affordable housing. He isn't building affordable housing. And so the zoning needed to be changed for him, his project. And I'm not sure I would oppose that project necessarily, but I think changing the zoning for the entire corridor was dangerous. And I think it's dangerous because what happens is that makes that land premium. This community is in fact a community that everybody wants to come to. So I don't know exactly what's happening in this guy's development, but I know he's building 50 to 100, something like that, condos. And they're small, but they cost like $2 to $5 million, but they're small. They're 1,000 square feet to 1,200 square feet, something along that line. Very few people who have that kind of money are going to buy those to live in themselves. They're buying those for vacation rentals. And you know, there's nothing wrong with using your property the way you want to use your property. So I'm not opposed to vacation rentals, and I don't think most of us are opposed. But if we're going to do this in this community, then we need to put really strict rules on what the STRs can do and how they can do them. And that's one of the things, for instance, is make sure that they aren't adding any more cars. They need to make sure that they are following the rules that are set out. And that means the rules need to be set out. The cost to do an STR in this community needs to be increased. Look at Douglas County. The difference between what it costs to be an STR, to get the license as an STR in Douglas County, and what it costs in Washoe County is phenomenally lower in Washoe County than it is over there. Fines. First off, there needs to be a system for figuring out who's the one doing the fining, who's doing the things that are wrong, and who gets fined. Currently, the fines in Washoe County are very, very low. One of the things that I recommended when I was actually talking to a group of staff on this issue was that they bifurcate this issue of STRs in the basin versus STRs in the valley, because that's a big issue. They don't want to put rules on the people in the valley on STRs, but there's nothing, what is it, like 95% of the STRs in the county are here in Incline Village? So the rules should reflect the needs of this community, not the needs of the valley community. And transportation becomes a very key issue in all of that. So that's really one of the areas that I'm very concerned about.
Thank you, Marcia. Alexis, please go ahead.
To address the question on special area zone 1 and the controversy surrounding that, the Washoe County Commission approved that unanimously, that change to add condos, which are attached homes, to special area 1, which is your town center, which is Highway 28. And that was requested, brought by a developer. I'll tell you, going back to county resources, I've been trying to fight for a county planner to just work on Tahoe issues so we can constantly update the area plan. But sadly have not been able to do that because we are limited in our resources. But so many of these amendments come from developers. And what I learned, and I think that it's very important for a county commissioner to learn and to grow. When I first heard this, I thought, and I will say just quickly, there is no such zoning as affordable housing zoning. There's multifamily zoning, whether or not you allow condos. I wish there was areas where we could just require affordable housing, but that is not how the zoning code works. It looks at density and uses. Looking at this particular request by this developer for special area plan 1, I thought, oh no, we can't have more condos in Incline Village. But the more I learned about it, the more I learned that this community wants to see redevelopment on Highway 28. This community tells me all the time, we want to see beautiful new buildings. We want to see a corridor that we can be proud of. So many of the developments that you see in our community, this community, are decaying because it's so difficult to develop in this community. And so part of the reason I pushed through the area plan when I was elected, which sat while my opponent was a commissioner for 8 years, did not do anything with it, because I saw that there was a need to make changes to that area plan so we could look at redevelopment on Highway 28. The natural brochures that you have on Highway 28 is because of that area plan development. And after talking to investors and developers in this community, they said, Alexis, the only way we're going to be able to redevelop the Highway 28 corridor is if we add mixed use. If we allow for condos, because that subsidizes the commercial development. Commercial corridors throughout this country are going away because we're all buying things on Amazon. And I think that it's really important to listen to the people who are going to be developing in this community to see how we can reach those goals. And I will say that 947 Incline Village project, we are going to see 4 workforce housing units, deed restricted, coming out of that project. And if they choose to do off-site workforce housing, there will be 20 required by their use permit that TRPA required. So that is the first time that TRPA has ever required inclusionary zoning. So that is one of the things that I'm working on, is constantly trying to achieve goals and making sure that we find that balance of what can be attained.
Thank you, Alexis. And during the planning process with a lot of projects, communication is something that the community brings up. Name 3 things you would implement to improve the communications between the commission and the community regarding projects in the neighborhood.
Well, I am so grateful that the IVCBA exists in this community now, and I give Linda Offerdahl and so many of the community members who work at IVCBA a lot of credit, because we needed a community organization in town that we could help gather people and listen to your feedback. And that is what IVCBA is doing tonight. And that is what IVCBA has been doing since they were formed. They have been doing the welcome wagon for new community members, but also many of you may not know they're working on workforce housing solutions. They're working on a Main Street program, beautification in your roundabout, seeing how all of the events that you see throughout the community, IVCBA is responsible for doing. And so we needed to find that community conduit to have those conversations. And it has been such a blessing. And I feel so thrilled. And I will say technology has allowed for better communication from Washoe County to Incline Village. When we have any sort of issue of import for Incline Village, Crystal Bay, we make sure that they can tune in via Zoom at the library. And so we've increased access, because that did not exist before, to ensure that we can hear your feedback. I am very accessible. I listen to community members and want to hear your feedback. But, and so one-on-one has been really helpful for me too, understanding the needs of this community, but ensuring that we work with organizations and the community forum to hear what you need from us has been a very important step in this time. And now we're going to work with IVCBA on our Tahoe area plan amendments, where you're going to see changes for workforce housing standards, because TRPA, I'm very proud of the work that we did to adopt standards that will help for workforce housing in this community. As you all know, you're very limited on how many units can actually be built in this community because of the compact. But it's very important that we make sure that we get folks who are professionals and also folks who serve this community to come and work here. And so that is another thing that we're doing with the IVCBA. So that's the constant communication that I have enjoyed with this community, and I look forward to continuing.
Thank you. Marcia.
I agree, IVCBA is really very important, and Linda and her team are doing a superb job, and have been for some time doing a superb job with keeping this community together. But I think the question was communication between, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe that the question was communication between the commission and up here and how that can be improved. And one of the things that I had proposed, and I actually proposed it in the end of 2019 at the request of many residents up here, is that the commission hold once a quarter a meeting here in Incline Village. And so the people here in Incline Village could see all the commissioners, talk to all the commissioners. We were working on that in 2020, and then COVID came about, and that germ sort of sidetracked anything else that we were doing. But I think that's an issue that the commission needs to adapt to, and they need to look at least a quarterly meeting in this community so that you're not having to run down to the valley every time you want to do something. But we need to make sure that we can communicate directly with you, and that we as Valley people need to know what the issues are up here, just as you guys need to know what the issues are that the other commissioners are dealing with in their community. And one way to resolve that problem, great way to resolve that problem, would be to bring quarterly meetings up here.
Thank you, Marcia. And we're going to do one more question, and then we'll take our intermission. The other major concern in the community is the old elementary school property. So purchased by the Tahoe Transportation District, potential site of a mobility hub, and currently sitting vacant. What is going to happen when the school is torn down next year? And do you see a different purpose for that property other than Washoe? And this is your question. Thank you.
I don't know what's going to happen with it when it's torn down. I know that TTD bought it with the intention of making it a bus mobility hub, not a bus stop, not a bus kind of a transfer station. That's what they really were originally looking at doing it. Not a place to store buses and things like that. At the time, I was sitting on TTD and I questioned what the citizens of Incline Village wanted, and you go back and check all of this. I probably have the documentation somewhere. I requested repeatedly for TTD to hold public hearings and listen to what the citizens wanted. Did they, in fact, want to add additional parking, additional, housing? What did they want to do with that piece of property? And I think that's an issue that still needs to be considered. I don't have a problem with the parking lot there. I know that Ms. Hill made the statement that she was not going to lose her parking lot. I don't believe it's her parking lot. I believe it belongs to the citizens of this area. But regardless of how you want to word it, I understand her being passionate about that issue of parking, because parking is an ugly thing here. I come up here a lot, and trust me, parking is an ugly thing. I know you all know that already. But a parking lot there shouldn't be a parking lot for visitors. It should be a parking lot for residents, so that residents are not parking on the street, which is what's happening right now. Lots of residents who live in the apartments right across the street from that particular location are parking way down the street because if they have two cars, they don't have a place to park their cars. So designate that for residents and maybe STR people, but don't designate it as a location for visitors to come in, park their cars, and get on whatever transportation might exist, which is news to any of us, I think, that transportation actually exists around this community. But whatever transportation might exist would just put more tourist parking in this community, and that's the last thing we need. So set it up as a parking lot. That'd be a great thing to do with it. Set it up as a parking lot, but designate it as Incline Village residents only. And that might include people who are staying in STRs. But there needs to be protection for the citizens that live here in Incline. And the way this is done right now, you don't have that.
Thank you, Marcia. And Alexis, please.
I actually agree with my opponent that parking and traffic is an issue here. And when I first got elected, that was one of the biggest complaints other than STRs. And I'm very proud that we were able to do a code to require STRs to get permitted while I've been a county commissioner, and have continued to tighten those codes, higher the fee, increase the fees, increase the penalties, and invest in that program. But yes, I agree, parking and traffic are an issue, and the only way to deal with it is to invest in parking for tourists and for this community, to invest in transit. The reality is Incline Village is between Reno and Sand Harbor. Sand Harbor is the most visited state park in our state, and it is seasonally open. So that will tell you how popular that park is. So looking at how do we mitigate the concerns of the traffic of the tourist? That is the issue that we need to look at, not pretend that it doesn't exist, because we did that for a decade plus. We need to actually deal with it. So my vision for the mobility hub, after doing a lot of public input, creating a local mobility hub committee, after having a lot of conversations with community members who still have concerns about the mobility hub location and the use, I'm not saying that they don't. It is to find ways to use the resources we have, and I'm so proud that the TTD board bought that mobility hub, well, the future site, it may be, of a mobility hub, the old elementary school, from the school district. So we, as a government entity, could invest in this community, and that wouldn't become condos. And that could become a community asset. I'm very proud that I was part of the vote to purchase that. So after doing a lot of study, looking at alternative locations, talking to so many property owners in this community, we found that there is no better location because folks don't want to give up their property or the property isn't big enough. So what we found when we spoke to FTA is they love the idea of co-locating a mobility hub with workforce housing, and they want to do grants for those type of projects because they see that public transit is connecting communities and connecting workforce. And that is something that this community has told me they also want. Reduce the traffic, reduce the parking issues, and help us with workforce housing. We can do all of that at that lot if the TTD board decides to proceed. And we have designs that show a parking garage that is flush with Highway 28, where buses will enter into the mobility hub site and not use Southwood. So I know that was a major concern we heard from the community of buses entering onto Southwood as well. So there are no perfect solutions in government, but I will try my darndest to make sure that I am fighting for you with every decision that I make, and that I'm realistically looking at the issues and how we can solve them.
Thank you, Alexis. Okay, folks, we are going to take a 5-minute break. We'll resume at 7:10, and if you have any new things to submit, please do so. Thank you.
Sit down, sucks.
We're going to get started with some more questions. We should be able to get through several more with about 45 minutes left. And we'll ask for closing statements at about 10 minutes till. Alexis, first question for this.
Bothering this lady?
Many residents of the village in Crystal feel that their community does not receive anywhere near their fair share of tax revenue back in services and improvements. We touched on that. As both of you likely know, there's an effort ongoing, which could be voted on as early as fall 25, to incorporate the Incline Village and Crystal Bay communities as a new city. If elected, what would you as county commissioner do to either support this effort or persuade the voting public that the county will do better at providing services and improvements than it has in the past? And would you commit to doing so if elected?
Thank you. As I said previously, As I said previously, I had the CFO at Washoe County do the analysis, and we do subsidize the services. Washoe County residents outside of Incline Village, Crystal Bay subsidize the services for this community. Again, we're happy to do it because we subsidize services for all sorts of communities. I'll tell you that the grass is always greener, and I think that may be some of this effort of wanting more local control, but with local control it causes additional costs. And so while we may subsidize the services for snow in Incline Village and Crystal Bay, and you may not have as many homeless in Incline Crystal Bay, we all share services, and with that, there is cost savings. We share services for public safety. We share services with our social services. And we share staff services. And as part of the city requirements, you're going to have to do a lot of analysis, and you're going to have to show that this is something that can pencil out. And I'll tell you, any incorporated city in this state, they pay higher taxes than unincorporated counties. Period. End of sentence. That is the truth. So you will eventually have to pay more taxes if you are going to incorporate as a city. I also question if you can keep IPGID if you become a city. And part of the magic sauce that you have with IPGID is that you can keep your beaches private. And if you were to incorporate as a city, it's a question of whether you can do that. And so I think that the community needs to have some realistic expectations when this proposal goes before you, because you will vote on it. As far as Washoe County's job to see how we can help not necessarily hinder, but how we can look at this issue, we will sit on a board of examiners and lay out the financial picture of what it will cost to become a city. And for me, I'm all about more services, less bureaucracy. And honestly, if you become a city, you will have duplicative services. You will contract out for all the things that Washoe County provides to you. I'm not saying Washoe County is perfect. And I will tell you, many residents tell me all the things we need to fix. And that's the joy of the job, because I get to get in there and see how I can make things better. But I will say that there is a lot of great efforts that we make to make sure that we take care of every part of this diverse county.
Thank you. This is really an interesting question, one that's been on the table for a long period of time. And I'll just tell you up front, I totally support it if that's what you want to do. I worked for the city of Fernley when I was a contractor, handling a number of contracts. I worked for the city of Fernley when they did the exact same thing as a contractor. I didn't work for the city, but I was a contractor with them. And when they did exactly the same thing and spun themselves out as an independent city away from Lyon County. I'm getting old. I guess I don't remember all my counties anymore. But Lyon County. And so I know there's a lot of costs associated with it, and I have total faith that you guys will review the entire thing as you walk through this process. I know that some citizens will think it's a bad idea. Some citizens will think it's a good idea. My position has always been I support what the citizens want. And so if I were your commissioner and you brought it to me at the commission, I would fight in favor of it if that's what your citizens want. You have to put it on the ballot. It's got to go on the ballot after you get the number of signatures and you get the plan all together. You got to go through the state, local government forming committee and all of that. There's a whole lot of work. It's not going to happen in probably certainly not the next 5 years, maybe in the next 10 years. There's a whole lot of factors to it. But my position has always been, if the constituents want it, and they live in this community, and they get all of the information they need from the people who are trying to put this together, I support it. And I will do whatever you can as your commissioner to make sure that you get what you want on this program. And that means working with you to make sure the costs are lower. Yeah, there's some additional costs. State law would require you to have your own police department, or you could contract, I think, with the sheriff under the scenario of contract, but you would have to be responsible for that. IPGID would not stay, but as I understand the way it works here, you own the beaches, not IPGID. I know IPGID likes to think it owns the beaches. The truth is, citizens own the beaches. And so I don't know whether the state, I've not looked into that issue, frankly. Because of course it wasn't really an issue in Fernley. There are no beaches out there. So I never looked in it. But I don't recall off the top of my head anything in state law that says your private ownership would change from being your private ownership as citizens. There are a lot of factors, though, that would change, and certainly you would have to look at all of those. And I would be surprised, though, if the team that is looking to put this together doesn't consider all those factors before they bring it to you.
Thank you, Marcia. And we'll start with you with the next question. Coming up with early voting in October and election day in November, a momentous election this fall, as I'm sure you know, so some questions about the county's role in voting. What are your thoughts on the role of county commissioner for the management of the election system? What improvements should be made? Would you have certified or did you certify the primary election results and why?
So my personal opinion is the county did a study, and they ought to, there's a whole lot of things that need to be changed according to the study. And so my personal opinion is the county needs to apply itself to making the changes that were proposed by the contractor who studied the issue on their behalf and studied the voter registrar on the county's behalf. And so the county needs that on the agenda. In fact, I'll tell you very frankly, it should already been on the agenda. It should already have been, the process of discussing it should already have started, because they said, when they said, you got to take it back down to the studs and rebuild it, that tells you there's some things wrong with it. And that's my interpretation of what they said. That's not exactly the words they said, but essentially that was the point they made, was that it needed to change. Would I have certified the vote? Because I did when I was a commissioner. I'll tell you very frankly, one of the things I know that several of people that I work with on a routine basis say is, you're commissioner, you set for election, and you're voting on your own certification for the election. That has historically always been done in every county in Nevada. I don't believe there's any county that the seated commissioner is asked to recuse themselves from the vote. I could be wrong on that, but because I haven't really looked into it yet. But I don't think there's any. Would I have certified this vote? I don't know, because I wasn't privy to all the information that was provided to everybody in the county. So I don't know if I would have certified it or not. I might have taken the same position Jim Herman took and said, I don't know if I can certify this, but I will tell you this. I actually wrote a piece of an article to the newspaper, and it's being printed in several different places, about the request of Cisco Aguilar, the Secretary of State, his request to the Attorney General and then to the Supreme Court to look at whether or not a state legislature, under any form of law, has the legal right to tell a duly elected official at the local government how they have to vote. And I know that in Nevada we're a Dillon's Law state. That's for no time now to talk about a Dillon's Law state. I know that in Nevada we're a Dillon's Law state, and that's the argument that has been made to this point. But I'm going to tell you right now, why do you need the county commission if the state legislature is going to tell them how to vote?
Well, I'd like to first start and say I would certify, and I have always certified the elections. And my opponent, when she was a county commissioner, had every opportunity to make the ROV's office a 21st century office and ensure that she invested in the staff and the technology. That's what I'm doing. When I saw the mistakes that were made, although not to the point of having a problematic election, but printing errors and omissions and spelling errors, I asked the county manager to do an audit. Not an audit of, is this a free and fair election, but an audit on how do we reinvest in this office. So what did the county commission do? We doubled the staff for the ROV's office. That was the #1 recommendation. You cannot run a mail-in ballot election with so few staff. What did the county do? We put in procedures and rules. And yes, not all of those are done yet, but if you go to the county manager's website, you can see all the things that have been done on that audit and all of the follow-up that has been done on that audit. I actually tried to bring that audit to the audit committee, but the audit committee ruled to not hear it. So that's why it hasn't gone to the Board of County Commissioners. But it's transparent. You can check it out. You have access to it. And, I believe in federalism. And that is the rule of the law in this country. And that means the federal government is the boss of the states. The boss of the states are the boss of our communities. We were created by the state legislature, the county commission. So the state legislature and the Secretary of State and the AG's office can tell us if we're not following the law, and thank God they can. We need rule of law in this country. And so I actually think that it's great that the Supreme Court may be looking at this issue when the county commission chose, I certainly didn't, but when 3 board members chose not to certify the recount, because there are real consequences to not doing that. You sow the seeds of distrust. You make sure that people do not believe in our election system. And that is wrong. That is not the role of leaders, the role of government. It is to uphold the rule of law and make sure we can make things better. I've been committed to doing that since I started the county, and our elections are free and fair, and I'm so proud of our ROV's office.
Whoa!
And a follow-up question regarding elections. 2 questions on opposing sides here. Will you support the free and fair election results without a hand recount? And if not, why? And an opposing question, what is your position on hand counting to dispel any controversy of the results?
Well, I was a bank teller, and I'll tell you what Hound County does is that it messes up your door sometimes. And that's why you see when you go to the bank, they count all of your money with electric money counting. And it's because humans are prone to error, especially on very complicated ballots where you are voting for different things in different parts of the county. I would not ever advocate for a hand count when we have the technology that we have in Washoe County. What was the second part of the question? Sorry. Thank you.
Would you consider it? Sorry.
Would you consider head count?
Basically asking for your opinion on hand counting. Would it help dispel controversy of results, or would you support a free and fair election without a hand recount?
You know, the controversy that's being created is by elected officials who know better. They are creating the controversy. They are making sure that you don't have trust in your election system because they lose. They don't like the outcome, so I'm not going to certify the vote. So that is not the role of a leader. And again, you heard my thought on federalism. I'm like, yes, that is the way that we run our country. And so I'm saddened that people have distrust in our election system. We are working so hard at Washoe County to dispel myths. And you're going to see a big campaign before the election to show how the election system works, because so many people do not understand how it works and how important it is to make sure all of your votes count. I think we all can agree all of our votes should count. And when you decide not to certify an election, you discount all of your votes. That is not the American system.
No.
Our job is to go to the ballot box every 2 years and elect the person that we want to elect and accept the results. And since Trump has gotten elected, we've decided in this country we don't want to accept the results. That's what leadership has done. It has gone down to our local community members and local officials who are part of this MAGA movement, and they are trying to take away the rule of law. They are trying to take away representative democracy as we know it. And this is something that's very serious and scary, and you should take very seriously. So you should listen to the answers of folks who will represent you and how they want to move forward with elections, because it is all of our elections that matter. It is the governing of this community, of this country that matters. And I want to see it done free and fair. And I don't think that it's right to create chaos in our election system.
Thank you. Marcia, same question for you.
Thank you very much. Well, that's an interesting question, but I will tell you that when I lost the election in Missville in 2020, the election is certified in December, and I certified the election that I lost. I did not come forward and say, well, there's no way I lost, she cheated, or what, they cheated, or somebody stole this away from me. I didn't do that. Because I do agree that elections are important and we need to make sure everybody's heard and everybody has a right to speak. I don't think that's the real concern of what happened in this particular issue. I personally think certification of elections is important. I think it is. But so is the feeling that the constituents are being heard. The voters are being heard. And I think that was the point. And I'll tell you very frankly, I probably, had I been sitting in that, I probably would have certified the vote originally, probably because it's my nature to just kind of fix things that way. But here's what happened when it went to a recount. That's not certifying election. That's certifying a recount. And those people who paid for this with private money, not your money, not taxpayer dollars, not fees from any of you, but private money came forward to pay for the recount. They asked one thing, please hand count the issues. And there's no law in the state of Nevada that says that can't happen. Now, there is a law that says elections, as the vote is cast, then so must the vote be counted. And that's why the machines. But what about all those people like me who wrote it on your little ballot and took it in? That's not cast by machine. That's cast by hand. And if you want to get technical with the words that are in the law, you got to look at all the words that are in the law. And that's what didn't happen. We could have solved this whole problem of all of those hearings and all of those people being upset, and probably we could have solved the problem of this going to the Supreme Court, although personally I think that's a good thing, because I think we need to have the answer and get rid of, we need to have the answer to why Nevada is one of the only 3 states in the nation that still have any aspect of Dillon's Law. Nevada is the #1 user of Dillon's Law. I don't remember the 3rd state, but the 2nd state is Arkansas. I always never want to compare ourselves to the state of Arkansas, but okay. Arkansas only has it for the purposes of a militia. They maintain that Dillon's Law applies if you want to start a militia. So in other words, a local government can't start their own militia for whatever reason in the state of Arkansas. But in Nevada, it's much more broad than that. And that needs to be answered because it goes back to the point I made before, and that is, why do we need all these different layers of government if the state legislature is going to tell these guys how they have to vote, even when they see problems and they want those problems fixed?
Next question for you, Marcia, is
We have a couple questions regarding the recent proposal for a professional soccer stadium in the Wedge Parkway area of South Reno. And the questions are, how do you see what was intended to be public lands to be used for private or commercial use? Do you support or oppose that in Washoe County?
Well, I support it if the deed is that passed it to the county in the first place is in fact supportable. But that's not the case in this particular issue because the daughter of the owner who deeded it, the owner of the property who deeded it to the county, has said point blank her father would have been unhappy with this particular issue. Secondly, that's probably not a really good place to put a 10,000 seat, and I believe that's the number of seats, a 10,000 seat stadium that's right off of a highway, of Mountain Rose Highway. So you want to talk about traffic problems in Incline Village? Yeah, you have traffic problems you won't believe. As soon as people start coming over from California and realize it's a lot closer and a lot faster to come over Mountain Rose Highway than it is to take the freeway to get to the soccer games. And soccer is very, very important. We all know how much people like the soccer. Soccer was played at the Aces Stadium for a while, and they really loved it. They actually got more people to visit soccer than they did get baseball, which may be why soccer's not played there anymore. I don't know. I didn't talk to Mr. Simon about why they removed the soccer, but regardless, that is probably not the appropriate location. And already there's another location in Reno. It's out off of somewhere, Parr Boulevard. I'm sorry, I think it's Parr Boulevard. somewhere out off of Park Boulevard, where there's a lot more transportation available, a lot more wide roads, a lot more people getting in, and they would promote Interstate 80 because that would be the best way to get to the stadium instead of going through the little village of Incline Village in Crystal Bay. And so I don't support it. I freely admit to you guys, I have not delved into the entire thing, but just from the comments that I've received from a number of different people who are in that area, I would not support it without some really serious digging to figure out how they're going to make it work in that community, how they're going to widen the roads so the traffic doesn't become crazy, and whether or not the citizens who live in that area support it. And my understanding is from the one cab hearing that they had, there were numerous people, maybe around over 100 certainly there, and no one supported it. And that's the thing that I go back to, that I tell you again. I support what the citizens support. It isn't the job of elected officials to tell you how you have to live in your community or where you have to live. As long as you don't tell me that, I promise you I will never tell you that. It is the job of elected officials to make sure that you guys are getting what you want. And there's a lot of citizens in that community who are unhappy about it. So a couple of things. You got to look at the deed to see what the deed restrictions are. And there are deed restrictions on a lot of parks that were donated to the county, a lot of land that became parks. So you got to look at the deed restrictions. That's extremely important. And then you got to ask the citizens, do they really want it? Thank you.
Yep. Any goes. Alexis, please.
Just to give a little bit of context, the county has a lot of properties that have been donated to us from families or from different sort of property acquisitions, and they're not fully developed. So the South Valley's athletic area is not fully developed. And why is it not fully developed? Because the county does not have all the money in the world to develop all of these different recreation areas. Actually, there was a private proposal that came through in that area for ice skating. And that has been very popular for the community, and that was a public-private partnership to develop that. The specific question on this soccer field, it's not going to go to the Board of County Commissioners until or if the Parks and Open Space Commission gives their blessing and has a full review of this process. So we'll see when that comes before the board. I would say the bigger issue and the issue you should be concerned with as community members is, why isn't the county able to invest in our parks? Why are we not able to invest in our open space, connect trails? Why do we not have the funding to do those things? Why do we have to do these public-private partnerships? And it's essentially, there is not enough money to do all the things, even though we need more soccer fields for our kids. We need swimming facilities all throughout this community. People deserve to be outside. People deserve to recreate. And I would like to see how we can create a regional parks district with Reno and Sparks and try to find some revenues to ensure that we can invest in our parks, because otherwise these proposals that are coming from private interests that may have a community good, which my understanding is, anything that goes before the Parks and Open Space Commission for the use of public property needs to have a community good. They'll continue to come because we cannot invest in our own properties. And this is the broken system that we have in the state of Nevada. I believe that we need to ensure that all kids in our community have access to recreation.
Connected from Paris questions.
For the next question, we have several about evacuations, and this is what I'm curious about as well, is we never know the numbers or statistics. What is the capacity for Incline Village, Crystal Bay on a given day, and what is the number of people that could be evacuated in an emergency? And I know there's lots of factors that fold into that, but it often seems like further development and different projects are aimed to bring more people into the basin. And of course, we want to do that to support businesses and encourage tourism. But where is that limit when it comes to evacuations? What is the capacity of the area in terms of wildfire?
Well, we know that TRPA has already put a capacity on development for the whole of Lake Tahoe. it's true. We don't have a way to ensure that a certain amount of people come into this lake area. And that is a difficult thing for us to manage, especially in peak times. I know you're all feeling it. And I think that there's an opportunity for the county to study this, which is why I discussed the evacuation plan that we'll be investing in to ensure that we're really meeting the needs of the community and hearing the community. But our emergency manager of the county, and the county is in charge of emergency management, has worked very closely with all of the agencies all around the lake to ensure that they are all communicating. And believe it or not, that has not always happened. And so the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. And I think that it's really important that we invest in our public safety resources, which I have done as a county commissioner, and the North Lake Tahoe Fire Department is allocated property tax through Incline Village and Crystal Bay to ensure that it is such a great district. Additionally, we have done so much work that I will tell you, developers in Southern Nevada is paying for all the forest thinning that we have been able to do in this community to do fire prevention as well. I think there is a question on how do we manage a natural resource that should be a national park, but is not, that has private interests in it. How do we do that? How do we ensure that we all have access to this incredible natural resource? How do we protect this natural resource? These are the questions that I am asking all the time as your commissioner. And I think that one of the ways that we could manage it and also pay for public transportation is a basin entry fee. I've been very open about being in support of that in an op-ed that has actually run in the RGJ, because I see that as an opportunity to see how we can control folks coming in, make sure that there's better planning before people get into the basin, and use those revenues to pay for public transit. So if you don't want to drive, if you can't afford to pay an entry fee, you can use public transit and access it, and we'll actually have a public transit system that is paid for by the visitor. That's the vision. So there's many different steps on how to do this, and there is a risk in living in this community. You are in the wild interface, and we are trying to do everything we can at Washoe County to make sure that we get people out, but also plan for the future.
Thank you, Alexis. Marshall.
Thank you. It's an excellent question, by the way. I don't know who presented it, but that's an excellent question, because I think it really goes to the fact of what we're doing here today, what we're talking about here today. It goes to the fact that we have a community that truly, without question, I completely agree, is a national treasure. People in Europe think that Tahoe is one of the most beautiful places in the world. They know Tahoe. They may not know Reno anymore, but they know Tahoe, and they come here to visit. So we have a responsibility as an elected body who has this beautiful national treasure in our backyard. We have a responsibility to see how we're going to protect the people who come to visit, as well as how we're going to protect the people who live here. And so I don't think TRPA has come up with a clear number of what the impact was, although I did see the number of trips today per day is like 200,000 cars throughout the whole lake on a week. That's during the shoulder season, not during the heavy season. It's much higher than that during the heavy season. I don't remember all the numbers because frankly I didn't look at it, but I do think that putting a fee on people who come into the valley, into the basin, is dangerous. And the reason I think it's dangerous is, how's it going to impact you who live here? Are we just going to say, oh, you only have to pay it if you're a visitor? How do you do that when you're going through a fee station? Go to Texas and ask anybody in Texas how they drive down all those beautiful highways that you pay for because you're a resident, and only the tourists have to pay. Trust me, not true. My sister lives in Texas, so I know for a fact that everybody who goes through one of those counters pays. So how are you going to fix that? And what's it going to do for Incline Village? Where's the bus system? How's the bus system going to work? Are we going to incentivize our RCA or whatever the hell their name is, are we going to incentivize them to come up here? Because we tried that. We've tried that before. And what they said was, well, yeah, we've been up there. We used to run a bus up there, but nobody gets on it. How many people in Incline Village want to give their cars up and jump on a bus just so they can drive down to Rayleigh's? It's not going to happen. And how are you going to incentivize citizens who live here to say, oh, I want to ride a bus, so I'll pay for it by paying a fee if I drive my car? Either way, it's just not a system whose time is ripe, and it needs to be way further investigated. And I don't think we're anywhere near the opportunity to investigate those kinds of things right now.
Thank you, Marcia. And we're going to wrap with one more question before closing statements. And Marcia, please start us off. What has been a difficult decision that you've made as an elected official that may have been unpopular or controversial, but will bring the biggest benefit to Incline Village or Washoe County as a whole?
The biggest issue that I have dealt with was arguing with TTD, when Tahoe Transportation District, when they wanted to buy that land in the first place and put a mobility hub in that, or a bus station or a transfer station or whatever they called it. I think it was a transfer station or whatever it's being called now, it doesn't matter. Biggest issue was to fight with my own team at Tahoe Transportation District, because I knew from talking to the citizens here in Incline Village that they didn't want it. They didn't want it anyway. They don't intend to get on buses. When the consultant at a TTD hearing, the consultant that TTD hired to discuss this said, well, we're going to put you all on bikes and we're going to put you on electric scooters. And one of the seniors raised their hand and said, I know most of us up here, or a lot of us up here are seniors. We're not going to get on bikes. And he said, then you need to move. Sorry, but that's what happened, and I have it on record. So anybody who wants to see it, you got my number, call me. You got to move. That's wrong. That's not saying to the citizens, we have your back. And we're going to do what you want done in your community. And there's a lot of things that need to be done up here. Transportation is just one of the many. And I appreciate the work that Linda and her team have done, because they really are working very, very hard to try and unify this and bring a lot of things together. I appreciate the work that TTD has done around the lake. But what is the benefit for the citizens who live in Incline Village? And I keep going back to that question, and I don't get an answer. So that's my biggest concern, was that I had to go against my TTD team, who really felt it was a good idea, but it didn't. It wasn't a good idea, whose time was right.
Thank you. Alexis.
I actually am most proud of purchasing that land, because there was significant pressure not to do that. And I believe that having the old elementary school kept in government hands to ensure that we can do a public process, to ensure that we can fulfill the needs of this community, it's a difficult decision. There were many people who were very concerned and upset, but I believe it was the right decision to invest in this community. And I have not been scared or shied away from difficult decisions. If you can imagine, when we asked for the redirect from our CVA funds to come back up to Incline Village, Crystal Bay, there are people who are down in Reno who would have a major problem with that. That's a difficult decision. As chair of the Board of County Commissioners, I'm faced with difficult decisions every day. And I am so honored that I get to make them for this community and the whole of Washoe County, because that is my role. And that means that sometimes, in order to meet the goal, in order to ensure that we have, for example, using the mobility hub as an example, we have less traffic, we have better parking, we have access to our incredible Lake Tahoe for everyone, to ensure that people from this community can get onto Highway 28 and go to Carson if you need to, instead of being stopped by all of those vehicles that are parked on the side of the road, which we will be moving to Forest Service lots as part of our plan of the extension of the East Shore Trail. These are the goals. We've got to do something with the resources we have and the political will that we have at the time and the opportunities that we have to actually make a move and do something right. And that is what I promise I will do for you every day as a county commissioner. I try to see what your goals are, and I try to make the best decision that I can for you with the resources we have and the opportunities we have before us. Because I ran for office because I saw so much inaction. I am continually having to clean up a decade's worth of inaction because it may be unpopular. And I feel like that's wrong. That's why I ran for office. That's why I love serving this community, because I believe that in the 3.5 years that I have been serving this community, I've done more for this community, and I've heard this from many community members. And I will tell you, the community members, I don't just listen to the loudest voices in the room. I hear from community members who are too intimidated to come to events like this because of the rumblings you hear, the intimidation that is created at public events. I listen to those voices too. And many people want to see a mobility hub in this community, and they see it as a solution. Thank you.
She's single-handed.
Thank you.
To both candidates for answering all these questions. We have many more, and hopefully we can type these up and convey them to you. But now it is time for a 5-minute closing statement. And Alexis, would you please start?
Thank you. I find, especially in this time of so much uncertainty and so much anger and so much worry in our communities and our country, that people can become quite cynical about politics. And they can think, it doesn't matter if I vote, it doesn't matter if I show up. And I'm so overjoyed that you all took the time to listen to my opponent and I tonight, because I think you can see a stark difference in the way that we govern, the way that we lead in Washoe County. And that is why I have been working so hard since I was a kid to make this community better. I'm invested in this community. I love living here. And I'm not going away. I'm committed to making sure that I deal with the difficult questions and solve your problems the best I can with the resources I have. But as a county commissioner, and our president will tell you this, when he was a county supervisor, he said it was the hardest job he ever had, and it's because they know where you live and they want you to solve all the problems. And I love it though, because I do think that there are so many opportunities as a county commissioner that I can lift your concerns to our senators, to our state representatives, and see how we can get things done by working together. My slogan is better together, because I do believe that. I believe that working together, we can solve problems. And I think in the 3.5 years you've seen me govern as a county commissioner, we have done so much work for our vulnerable populations. We've done so much work connecting communities with trails, connecting communities with multimodal infrastructure, investing in communities, meeting you where you're at on the ground. That is the role of a county commissioner. And it is difficult, but it's a joy, because service to the community that you grew up in, there's nothing that you could want. I love doing it. I hope that you'll give me an opportunity to do 4 more years so I can finish all of these projects that I've been able to do for you, and that we can work together and continue to solve these problems, because we're not going to solve them by just doing what the loudest person in the room tells us to do. We're going to solve them by collaborating and working together, and I'm committed to doing that.
Marshall, please.
Thank you very much for being here tonight and for taking the opportunity to sit and listen to two, I think, very diverse ideas on how government should work. In that respect, I totally agree with Ms. Hill. I believe that government should be controlled by the people, not by the elected officials. I believe that the chair of a committee, the chair of the commission, should be respectful of every other commissioner, because each of those commissioners have the same authority and the same right that the chair has. It's not the chair's job to audit what they do, to interfere with what they say, or to try to preach law to them. And that's the kind of thing that you've been seeing for the last little more than 2 years since Ms. Hill has been chair. I also agree with one thing she said, and that was that the loudest voice in the room is shouldn't control. But what I don't agree with is that loudest voice in the room isn't always the people on the right. A lot of times it's the people on the left. Sometimes the two of them are yelling so loud that the rest of us in the middle of the world don't have the ability to even know what should be done. And that needs to stop. I do agree that that's true. But one of the ways to make it stop is to stop catering to it. Stop bringing the group in their little green shirts or their little pink shirts or the group out in the back, and stop letting them intimidate and threaten the commissioners, because that's going on now and that's wrong. These commissioners have a responsibility to you, the citizens, not to you, the person who wants to stir up trouble. And I say that's happening on the left and it's happening on the right. But one of the things I would tell you is that when Ms. Hill and I debated 4 years ago, had a forum 4 years ago, she accused me of being in the pocket of developers because the developers supported me. Historically, developers generally support the incumbent. I have Ms. Hill's C&E report that's reported to the state. And if you want to see where the big dollars are, look on here. If you want to see where the developers are, look on here. So if I was in the pocket of the developers 4 years ago, I guess that means Ms. Hill is in the pocket of the developers today. And although I agree that the developers and the people should work together for the betterment of the government, along with the elected officials, I do not believe it's solely the developers. The citizens have a right to express their opinion, and they shouldn't be shouted out, threatened, or intimidated because their opinion doesn't agree with the leadership of the commission. And that is a serious problem with this commission. I did some research on commissions in Washoe County, and frankly, I never ever found another chair who did what this chair has done to these commissioners. I never found another commission that was as dysfunctional as this commission is, because they're so busy infighting and arguing with each other and creating havoc for everybody else that nobody really knows what's going on at any given time, and that needs to change. And if you want good leadership, you want good government, then you need to elect somebody who's going to stand up and say, no, we are not going to behave like 2-year-olds as we sit on the commission. We're going to behave like adults, and we're going to make a difference for our citizens. So please, I ask you this, elect me. I commit to you, I'm honest, I'm straightforward, I'm going to give you the straight scoop, and I'm going to listen to everything you have to say, just like I did before. One other thing I would clarify before I get kicked out of here. It isn't true. Ms. Hill indicated that in the 8 years I was there, I did not do the area plan. That's not true, actually. We passed the area plan in 2019. She amended it. She didn't draft it. She didn't create it. We passed it in 2019 at the request of the citizens to have it done the way it was done. And there were some things that didn't get done that they wanted done, true. But we still did it because the citizens matter. I want to thank you again. I appreciate you all being here, and I hope you have a really great night. Please be safe going home.
No.
Alexis Hill and Marcia Berkbigler, thank you so much for being here. The volunteer crew from the IBCBA Community Forum: Denise Davis, Rhonda Teitzer, Linda Offerdahl, Julie Malkin Manning, Jonathan Goldman, and Kathy Slocum. Thank you so much for your time and effort putting this together. Everybody begins October 19th at your public library, as well as other locations in town. Continues through November 1st. Election Day, November 5th. We'll see you at the polls. Thank you, folks. Okay.